Who knows the exact time and place they were born? I was born at 1:45 p.m. on January 14th, 2008 at the Griffith Base Hospital. Until a couple of years ago, that's as much as I knew about my birth story, or as my dad likes to call it, my origin story. For something considered my origin story, I knew very little about it, and the only reason I did was because of an optional child studies class that I had elected to take in Year 9. Honestly, when choosing the subject, everyone said it was one of the easiest classes. And then I could focus on my much more serious and rigorous engineering class. But child studies is the subject I have gained the most in. It was my first authentic exposure to childbirth and simultaneously what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. As the class progressed, we were taught a vast series of things, just a few of them being biology, anatomy, and what being pregnant actually entails for a mother. It was the ease in which my teacher spoke that made this experience amazing for my peers and I, removing that familiar sense of discomfort and awkwardness and employing a frankness when talking about childbirth allowed us to focus on what was actually being said, allowed us to focus on how something so common, something that happens many times a day, was actually the epitome of the sheer pain, exhaustion, and sacrifice the body can endure to create something wonderful, to focus on what our own mothers had gone through for us. So inspired by my teacher's lessons, I went home and asked my mother about my origin story. Starting at the very beginning, my parents met in their home country of Lebanon. Returning with my father, my mother endeavoured on the 30-hour voyage back to Griffith. My father had already been in the Riverina for a while, growing up on a farm in Yenda. His side of the family had already established their roots, getting used to the Australian customs and habits, the English language and its funny accompanying slang, and the calm and laid-back culture that extends to our healthcare system. My mother was definitely not used to these things. Still pretty new to Australia when she had my older brother, she had high expectations of the maternity ward and was shocked when she had to wait 2 hours to be attended to. And when she was reprimanded for coming in too early. My mother continuously requested an epidural, but she wasn't even seen by another nurse until she was just about to deliver. This treatment felt isolating and made this first-time experience even more daunting. It was 4 years later, when my mother had me, that she was now more experienced and able to better advocate for herself, ensuring she received proper pain management and was able to better appreciate those vital bonding moments. However, the wait times were still long and the treatment was still disheartening. Unfortunately, many women relate to these experiences. Did you know that this issue has become so prevalent that a parliamentary inquiry into birth trauma was launched just mid-last year? This has provided families and healthcare staff with the platform to share their experiences. A nurse, Jane Doe, who had worked at the Griffith Base Hospital in 2017, submitted her own story, recounting a higher-up telling her that an increase in staffing would not occur until someone died. In 2022, the traumatic story of a local Griffith mother was also published in national news. The day after her C-section, she was left to her own devices. With only 3 nurses on shift, her medication could not be administered, and she was left in debilitating pain, unable to bond with her newborn. A recurring theme amongst many of these stories is the limited number of qualified healthcare staff, just unable to manage the high patient loads, especially common in rural hospitals like the Griffith Base Hospital, who have to manage the deliveries of the town, as well as outlying areas like Leeton and Narrandera, who have either had to close their birthing units completely or can only manage simple births. An issue spanning decades, it seems like this is something that will continue to prevail when my peers and I begin to start having families ourselves. But understaffing is not just restricted to maternity wards. These issues affect all aspects of rural medicine. The Riverina community is extremely special to me, with its rich and vibrant culture, full of friendly, kind, and resilient people. Understanding who exactly these staff shortages affect has inspired me to pursue a career in medicine as an obstetrician gynecologist, hoping to return to the area. This is a uniting motivation amongst rural students, but there are many barriers in place preventing those most likely to return from even beginning their endeavours. The medical course is extremely competitive, and accordingly, there is a complex three-step application process, starting with the University Clinical Aptitude Test, or the UCAT, which has a mandatory $325 registration fee and must be completed in a testing centre location, the closest one to Griffith being a 4-hour bus trip away. Across the entirety of Australia, only 5 out of 30 testing centre locations are classified as remote, with the rest being in close proximity or within a major city, meaning a large gap still remains. But medical schools are becoming more understanding and have considered these barriers rural students may face, even allowing them to choose to take placements in a rural area and feel a bit closer to home. Having met one of these medical students, she was originally from a town more remote than Griffith. When talking to her about rural medicine, you could feel the passion and excitement for her work radiating from her, and her sincerity was extremely moving. Unfortunately, she will be forced to complete her specialty surgical training in a major city for at least 5 years before she's actually able to return. Things like universities making considerations and the parliamentary inquiry are a step in the right direction. Things like this only happened because of the courage of traumatised families to formally complain and the commitment from healthcare staff willing to return to the area despite the fact that it has been made easier to stay in the city. But consistent accountability from the public is required to ensure that all these positive ideas from the parliamentary inquiry actually become positive actions. So just like me coming home after school to ask my mother about my origin story, I urge all of you to go and ask your mother when and where you were born.